I find something attractive about old houses. The history, the craftsmanship, and the stories of the people who live there. Maybe it's because I grew up in an old house myself, with rich, dark-stained woodwork, a farm sink, and a clawfoot tub. From a young age, I dreamed of buying an old house and updating it and improving it. So it is no surprise that 6 years ago we bought an 1897 Italian 8 with high ceilings, tall windows, and beautiful red oak floors throughout. After the noble civic and romantic feelings wore off, we were left with some questions. Like, why did they paint the wood trim blue? Why is that room painted green? Why is this electricity wired in such a crazy way? And why is the basement, the addition and the basement still wet even though we have French drains? After all, those trenches near the walls are supposed to direct any water to a sump and then get pumped out. Great idea. But they were not made with any pitch. So anytime water gets in, it just sits there. One night I got out the paperwork of the previous owners that they saved for us, and I found a building permit for that addition, which had a font's texture that can only be made by a typewriter, and the words architect and contractor were both followed by the words self. We lived here for so long now that the French drains not draining had become normal. For the longest time, we assumed that that was just how it is supposed to be. And isn't that true for our country as well? We may question who built these foundational pillars and why they did so in the first place. Isabel Wilkerson lays out a well-crafted and researched read on the structures of our house are in fact the main origin of our discontents. From the beginning, the skeletal beams have formed a caste system with official laws and unofficial habits that keep us unequal. Now, when we hear the phrase caste system, we may think of Nazi Germany or perhaps India, but our country too has had and still has the foundations of a caste system. It has always been based on race. The structure of our house is built on an untouchable black population, buttressed with land stolen from indigenous peoples. The caste system has continued on in the skeletal beams of our house. Our immigration system is broken and reforms are uniformly blocked because of these foundational structures. Shortly after the Nazis came to power in Germany, and when they still carried about having some sort of international respect, they wanted to learn how to better discriminate, and they chose to study the architecture of our house. In 1934, they studied our structures of racial purity and how our system keeps whites on the top of our caste system. Nazi Germany looked to us for inspiration. Hitler praised the United States' near genocide of indigenous peoples. They looked at how some of the more influential people in our house and how they were proponents of eugenics, the pseudoscience that gave credence to the racialized caste system. These supporters of eugenics included the Harvard president, Charles W. Eliot, also a Unitarian, whose son became president of the American Unitarian Association. The Nazis also studied the laws that do not allow blacks and whites to wed, and our race-based immigration bans. However, some laws not even the Nazis could get behind. The one-drop rule, where anyone with black ancestry was counted as black, was deemed too harsh by the Nazis. Several years ago, a friend is helping me move. We are carrying boxes to the steps of an old duplex. Somehow or another, the topic of racism comes up. My friend gets really defensive. What do you want me to do about it? My ancestors didn't own slaves. They were poor Polish immigrants, and they sure didn't steal native land. I'm sort of stunned. I give him a weird look, and I'm not sure how to respond. Of course, not one of us was here when this old house was built. Maybe our direct ancestors had nothing to do with any horrible structures of injustice, or maybe they did. Either way, we are heirs of this old house. We, the current owners, did not build the French drains that don't drain. Yet those wet basement walls are ours to deal with now. And any further improvements are in our power. Anyone who owns an old house knows the work is never done. And we can't ever expect it to be. We can try in our ways to repair things the best way we can. Built into the skeletal foundations of Unitarian Universalism is the legacy of the social gospel movement, the idea that heaven is not some rewarded place hereafter, but something to be worked on here and now. We don't have a creed. Instead of emphasizing correct doctrine, we emphasize correct living, ethical living. And despite the promoters of eugenics, we always had those who yearned to bend the arc of the moral universe towards justice. We have been a people unsatisfied with leaky roofs of discrimination, and if we do not pay attention, the rain does and will get in, and we refuse to put just buckets out. We want to repair the roof. At the heart of who we are is a desire to leave our house better than we found it. I know that many of us put the practice of social justice into our daily lives. We aim to have inclusive classrooms, we volunteer, we serve on boards, and we are making a difference. Even in the pandemic, we improved our house. This congregation organized rallies for racial justice. We wrote postcards as part of You the Vote that targeted voter turnout in Georgia, and it helped. Right now, as a congregation, we are sort of focused in on coming together and on the relationships we have with each other, which are all good things. But at the same time, Faith in Action is leading a letter campaign to get out the vote. I'm going to be offering a 3-part workshop called Let's Talk About Class. And I'm really excited about next year's social justice initiative, which is going to focus on the intersection of environmental justice and social justice in the North Country. We're beginning to plan on that. More to come on that. Building a more equitable house is part of our faith tradition. This past Tuesday, I went to a St. Lawrence County-wide meeting on ending homelessness. There were police officers from at least 3 different agencies, county caseworkers, representatives from several different nonprofits throughout the county. I was the only clergy person there. We cannot let the awkward leaks become acceptable. We cannot let the unacceptable simply become inconvenient. I showed up because people experiencing homelessness is more than an inconvenience. It is a deeply moral problem. Shortly after the shooting in Uvalde, Texas, I was talking to 2 of my best friends. We're kind of spread out across the country. One lives in Wisconsin and one lives in California. The 3 of us are all fathers. We knew that could have been our kids. We felt helpless, defeated. Well, all we can do is vote, one said. Now, I vote, and I want you all to vote, but I think it's the least we do. We can and do support and partner with nonprofits that are aligned with our values. We organize, we get involved, we learn, we grow, we serve on committees and boards. For us, voting is the bare minimum. Now, I know not all of us are plumbers or electricians, or for that matter, nor are we activists or organizers. But we all have different talents and personalities that lend itself to repairing the house. We need letter writers. We need pie bakers. We need logo makers. And above all, we need relationship builders. I am slowly refinishing the doors of my old house. Some were painted yellow, red, blue. I decided to go all the way down to the grain and the waves of wood. I'm using heat, scrapers, HEPA-filtered shop vacs, and I'm facing the toxicity of lead paint safely. It's been 6 years now. I've refinished 7. I'm on my 8th. 3 more to go. I'm pretty confident I'll finish by the time the mortgage is paid off. Now, I missed some paint here. I accidentally gouged wood here. The wood filler didn't quite match the way I wanted it to. But I know the work is worth it. The doors are better than they were. And some might see all these blemishes and say, hey, just go to Lowe's and buy new doors. They're not that expensive. Think about what your time is worth. We are not going to throw away these doors. Cut to fit into a settling and uneven house. Doors that have been slammed in anger over the years. Opened to friends. Banged and nicked by many children. We are not going to sacrifice our convenience and time. And we will refinish the doors. This is a sort of deeper invitation. The house will never be perfect. Nope. And never quite done. But it can be a little better, a little more sustainable, a little more equitable, and a little more beautiful. And we don't have to wait on professionals or politicians. We can start refinishing now. We can complain about our house, we can critique its design and see that the inner structures have warped, and still love it, and still want to live in it. We will be the people of conscience who never leave the house. So take care of it. Together we can rebuild a house of peace, holding hands and walking with the wind. Amen. So may it be.